Hello everybody, this is Don Kolesky, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Excel. Let me just run up here to the top and talk a little bit about what we're going to try to cover in the next 15 or 20 minutes about Excel. The universities are asking us to make sure that students coming out of basic statistics have an understanding and exposure to Excel. The reason being that businesses by and large use Excel and have that tool set available to their staff and employees. I've been in business for 45 years and I'm a pretty extensive user of Excel for statistical analysis, and the tool sets that are available in Excel have continued to improve. So let's just kind of jump in here, and first let me say, if you are a power user of Excel, or if you are extremely comfortable with Excel, have exposure to some of their statistical tools, this is probably going to be very basic to you. If you have a very limited exposure to Excel, this is a good primer. What I'm trying to do is getting the class to a basic level of understanding that we can build on together as we get into the course material. There are some good tutorials that are linked in the course material that also can be useful to you. Okay, so let me jump in right now and just talk about Excel in general. First of all, it's going to be important to you, or may be important to you, to know what version of Excel you're using. I can't show you because I'm on a split screen right now, but at the very, very top, when you first open up Excel, there'll be an Excel button there. You can click on that, and then there'll be a drop down. It'll say About Excel, and if you click on that, it'll tell you what version you're running. The reason why that might be important is if you're trying to get visibility to one of the tool packs that are in here, and we'll talk about that in more detail later. It may be helpful for you to know what version you're on. Also, whenever you are trying to figure something out using Excel, Google is a great tool to search and say, how do I something Excel version or whatever, and you'll find that will quickly get you to the right answer, because sometimes things change slightly from version to version. Also, what I show you on Excel might be presented slightly different if you're on a different version of Excel. So don't be too worried about that. What I'm going to try to cover today are the basics of how Excel works. Okay, so Excel thinks in terms of locations. It is a relative. It is a relative thinker. So let's talk about how we identify where we are within Excel. First of all, cells are identified by location. Location is determined by a column and a row. You can see A, and this goes over quite a bit, and then columns going down. We can adjust column widths and row heights. Later on we'll talk about that, or you'll figure that out if you're not already aware. So for instance, this number 2 here would be identified as being in B6. B, columns B, row 6, this would be D6. So that's how Excel will remember that location, okay, just because that will become important to us when we're writing formulas. All right, next. When you are working in Excel, we always have to tell Excel where we are working. And so the way we do that is by highlighting it. And you can highlight a single cell, or you can highlight a range of cells for certain different activities that you do. You do that by getting your cursor over that cell and by left-clicking on your mouse, and you'll see you get a box around it, and this tells you that that's the cell I'm working at. And if I wanted to put a 4 in there, I would then hit 4 and enter, and you'll see the 4 goes into that particular cell. You'll also see that when you just hit enter, it automatically moves down to the next row, which helps you if you're just entering data. Okay, so number 1. Now, the other thing is, if I want to work on a range of cells, I can highlight a range of cells very similar to a single cell, get your cursor over it, left click, and then move your cursor to cover the range that you're trying to work with. When you're done, lift it up. Now in this particular case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the numbers in there. All I did was hit the delete key. Okay, so range of cell or an individual cell. Okay, copying. When we have a number in a field, I'm going to go put a 2 in here. If I want to copy something that's in this particular field, and let's put 35 in the next field. If I wanted to copy this 2 and have it somewhere else, I can do that by highlighting it, right-clicking, copy, going over to where I want it. Let's say I want to put it up here, highlight that, right side, and paste. And now you'll see I've got the 2 in both. And escape says you're done with that. Okay, now if you go to the home page, you'll also see this little paste button over here. Cut, we're going to talk about cut in a minute. Copy, this is formatting, or painting the formats. This is cut, copy, and then this is paste. And if you click on this, you'll see that there are different options for when you're pasting. We'll get to that hopefully in a couple minutes. But you can see that I copied this value and I put it here. Cutting is different. Cutting is literally moving it, taking it out of the cell and moving it somewhere else. So we would cut, and then we're going to, let's say, put it here, highlight where I want to put it, and I hit paste, and now you see it disappears from here and it moves to here. And that is different than copying. When we get into formulas, when you copy a formula from one cell to another, that is different than cutting and pasting. So let's do that right now. Let's put a 3 here, and then I'm going to do a very, very simple formula. I'm just going to add, don't worry about how I'm doing this quite yet, this plus, plus this, and then hit enter. Okay, so what this did was this added my 2 rows above this, and you'll see, again, looking up here, you can see what this cell has. It doesn't have a 5 in there. It says B6 plus B7. B6 plus B7, and that equals 5, and that's what it presents to us. Okay, so what Excel is thinking is take the number 2 rows above me and add it to the number 1 row above me and put that in there. That's what Excel is thinking with this formula. So now let's just copy this formula and let's just move it over 1 and paste it here. And I want to show you what happens. Okay, so hit escape and those little lines disappear. And you can see it says 0. But if you look at this, you say it's B6 plus B7. I copied the formula over here and it said C6 plus C7. Because the formula says take the row 2 above and add it to the row 1 above. 2 above and 1 above have nothing in it. Okay? This can be very, very helpful to you. For instance, let's say that I've got numbers up here that are 7 and 5. And you see that now if I wanted to copy this folder on this formula over here, it just copies the formula. Now let's make this spreadsheet a little bit larger. Let's say it's 11 and 21 and 45 and 78. Okay, so those are my data points, but I want to add. I want totals in each of those. Okay, so I can literally copy this. And I'm going to paste it to both of these by highlighting and then pasting. And now you can see that it just automatically did that. Now I'm going to show you another way to do this. Up here, you'll see that this has got a back arrow. And if you haven't saved your information or your formulas or items in your worksheet, you can hit back and it will take you back as if by keystrokes. And if you want to go forward, you can only do that till you save. Okay, so now, next thing, another easy way to copy, which is really helpful if you're doing a lot of spreadsheet work, is you can highlight your corner, grab that corner, and just drag it across, and it automatically copies that across. Isn't that cool? Really helpful. Okay, so different ways you can do that. Now, just out of curiosity, let's say that we don't want to copy and paste, but we actually want to cut and paste. Let's just take these three, and we'll leave this first column as it is so you can see the difference. And we're going to cut that, and we're going to move it down one row. And now you see that these they're not looking now at 2 rows up plus 1 row up. They're looking at the rows that were originally. So when I cut it, it readjusts to where you've moved it. It's very smart that way. So let's just cut this and put it way down here. See how that works? Isn't that neat? So you also can cut and paste this into another worksheet. So just for fun, let's go ahead and cut this. And let's move it to another worksheet. I'm going to go to worksheet 2 and put it here. Isn't that interesting? So, and if you look at the formula here, it even now tells you that this came from worksheet 1. These are worksheets. This is a worksheet. Now that I have multiple worksheets, this would be called a workbook. Book 1. Okay. So Excel's very smart on remembering how you're moving things. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. And you'll see how that's very beneficial later on. So we talked about cutting and pasting. Cell contents, you can only see the cell contents by when you highlight a cell, you can see what's here, okay? Okay, it retains a number. So it retains a number and it displays a number. So let's do this. Let's take something that's a very, very long decimal place. 2.13456 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 1, 2. Okay, really, really long number, right? And you can see that if I want to display that, I can display that to just 1 decimal place, which it rounds to the nearest decimal place, or I can display it to a lot more. Excel, when it's doing functions using that value, it's always using the full value, not the presented or rounded number. So if you're only showing this to 1 decimal place, which would be 2.1, but you use this in a calculation, it's going to use 2.13456 It's going to use that entire number that's in there. I just want you to be aware of that. It doesn't create a problem for us in this class at all. I just want you to know when you're footing sometimes in business, that's helpful to know. Okay, when you want to delete something, you highlight it and hit delete key and it's gone. Okay, you also can highlight it and right click and you can, let's see, delete. That will take the number out of there. Clear contents, very similar. Clear contents will delete formatting and anything else. So if you completely want to clear the contents and have that as a fresh box, you can just hit clear contents. If you just want to delete the number, then you can go ahead and do that. So let's go on. Undo, we talked about that, going back. You can only do that till you save it. Formatting. We just talked about formatting. You can truncate and round up and round down. So let's talk just for a second about what truncating is if you don't remember that. The number here, if I were to put a number here and say 2.1234, and I wanted to truncate that number to a whole number, the whole number is 2. If I wanted to truncate that to 2 decimal places would be 2.12. It's like you just cut off everything after that. Rounding goes to the next number. So let's do something a little bit different. 2.173. Okay, so I'm just going to use that number. If I was going to truncate that number to 1 decimal place, it would be 2.1. If I was going to round it to 1 decimal place, it'd be 2.2, because the 7 would tell you round up. Truncating, you just cut it off. Okay, there are times where you want to truncate. It's fairly rare. We don't spend a lot of time in this class, but I always like to refresh people on the concept of truncating. Rounding, you can round up to the nearest or down. So if I was to take this number and I was to round this to 1 decimal place, it would be 2.2. If I was to round up to 0 decimal places, that would be the whole number. It would go to 3, right? And if I was going to round down to 2 decimal places, it would be 2.17. Or if 1 decimal place would be 2.1. Even though, so 2.1 would be taking 2.17 and rounding it down to 1 decimal place. There are functions in Excel that allow you to do this if you need it. I'll give you an example. When I'm doing quality assurance work and I'm drawing a sample and my sample criteria is I need 10% of something, and my sample number calculates out to let's say I need 25.6 samples, I always want to round up, because if I just took 25 or 25, it wouldn't be 10%. But if I take 26, I know I've done a full 10%. So there are times where I want to round up once I calculate my number. Okay. Real fast, I want to show you that Excel's got some great graphics in it. Let's do, and over here we'll just do, okay, and 12. Okay, so, oops, that should be 10, just for fun, because I want to show you something. So, if I wanted to highlight this and I go up here to insert, you'll see that you got these pictures of charts. We will spend time going over these probably in our next lesson, but if you do this, we can hit, say, do a chart, and it just appears. Excel is very powerful, by the way. You can click and hold and move it. You can make this very professional looking. You can export it. It's really, really good. I do it all the time and use them for reports that might be in like a Word doc or something like that. So you will find that you can put legends, titles, you can read, I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do this, and I'll show you more as we go through this semester. If I wanted to do something a little bit different with 2 columns, I could go to insert, find this, and say, oh, well, you know, let me go ahead and see this. We'll talk about this later on. But this actually plots that on an X and Y basis, and we'll spend more time going over that. But I wanted to show you that it's got charting capabilities, which are very, very good. The other thing is it's got formulas that are available to you if you can't remember a formula and you're trying to figure it out. So let's go up and look for formulas. So if we go to the top, we find formulas, and I would ask you to please find statistics up there. Anybody find it? It's not there, is it? Okay, well, let's go to more functions. Let me go ahead and just delete this, go back up here. So if we go to more functions and then you open it up, you'll see, just trying to get back to, okay. I thought I was still doing some functions, so I wanted to change some of this so we can see this up here. When you click on formulas, you'll see it's highlighted here, and you've got math and trig, and then you've got more functions. You don't see statistics here, but if you click on more functions, you'll see statistics. If you go here and click on this arrow, you'll see the drop down of all of these different functions. We're going to go through some of these in some detail, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. If you say, oh yeah, I know it can do something, but I can't remember how to do it, you'll find functions here. But let's look at round up and round down. So we go down here, we see, oh, wait a sec, I don't see round up and round down here. All right, so let's go look somewhere else. In the math and trig functions, if we go down here, and there you go, round, round down, round up. So we'll be able to use that. So let's take this function right here, and let's go, I'll talk about this in a minute, at round up. I'm going to say use this, and I'm going to do it to 1 decimal place. I'm going to hit enter. You can hit a close parentheses or not, and you can see it rounded that up to 2.2 to 1 decimal place. So, so now let's talk about the formula structure here. First of all, whenever you are doing formulas, you can use an equal sign or an at sign. Either one, Excel goes, okay, it's a formula. And then you tell it what the formula number is, and then the functionality, the protocol is you do a parenthesis, and then you will put information in, and then you will close parentheses. Excel is very smart. When you hit enter, it says I'm done, and it will close the parenthesis for you, the parenthetical. So in this particular case, the roundup formula says what item are you trying to round and how many decimal places. That's what that is saying. So when I typed it, if you noticed, I didn't type the closed parentheses. You can, it's just if you're moving really fast, a lot of times you just leave it off and it's a shortcut. So if I wanted this to be the 2 decimal places, let's just go up here and I'm going to make this 2 decimal places, and you see it changes it, and it now rounds up to 2 decimal places. So you can edit up here, or you can try to do it actually in the cell. I frequently will edit up here. It's just a lot easier because you can see everything. Okay, so I wanted you to see that. The other thing that I want you to be aware of is the data analysis tool pack. So we've now looked at insert, which is where the charts are. We looked at formulas, where you can find certain formulas. And now if you want to look at the data analysis tool pack, you click on data and you'll see data analysis over here. That's actually the data analysis tool pack. That's what I refer to in the syllabus. If you open up your Excel and you go to data and you don't see that, don't panic. It doesn't mean you don't have it on your computer. It means it's just not showing on Excel, and it's there. You have to tell your computer to show it to you. It's very, very easy. And I think I've got the instructions available to you. If not, you can always just Google and say, how Excel show data analysis tool pack, and it will give you the step-by-step instructions. It's very simple to do. And once you do it on your home computer, it will be there every time you open it up. Okay. Now, in some very, very basic versions of Excel, you may have a problem with this. So check that out. If you were trying to do this off of an iPad or something, you might have an issue with it. But try, see what you've got. Okay, you might have to download something else. Okay, but let's click on Data Analysis Tool Pack, and now you'll see that we get this drop down, and there's a lot of different items here. We're going to cover about half of these, maybe a little bit more in our test, in our class, not our test, but in, I meant to say in our course. We will use these in our exams, but I just wanted you to see them. And then when we, for instance, we're going to be talking pretty quickly about descriptive statistics. And so when you hit that, and you'll just kind of see, it leads you to some different input items to be able to do this. These are more sophisticated statistical tools, and we'll be using those. So pretty cool. Okay, so that tells you that. I do want to just quickly mention that there is spell check. Sometimes you're using Excel, but you're also doing text where you might write something in Excel. There is, under review, there is a spell check up here, you can see. So if you've misspelled something, let's say like if I were to mistype road, that says road, so it's going to think that's true. How about XT, right? And then I were to hit spell check, it's probably going to tell me that that's a problem. Okay, so you can, it's good to use if you're using this to present something else. Okay, so next, merging cells. Sometimes I'm doing something like this, and this is, let's say, our X data, and this is our Y data, and these are labels. So I'm going to go ahead and just put labels like my label would be labels, okay? But I want this to look nicer, so I want this labels to be over all the data. And so in order to do that, because these are two different columns, I can actually merge these cells. So if you go to Home, and you will see here that you've got this little button, which is Merge and Center, and now it merges it, okay? You can, by the way, move it to the left justify, right justify, or keep it in the center once you've done that. When you first merge the cells, it will put it in the center. Now my column headings, X and Y, I want those centered too, so I can just highlight both of those if I want. And I can highlight this and put them in the middle. And even my data, I like my data. I think it'll look better if I just center it. And so there we go. Well, but I'd also would like this to be boxes so it's a little bit easier to read. So if I go back up here, you can click on this box and you'll see, well, let's go ahead and put all borders around it. Now you can see that. Isn't that nice looking? And let's go ahead and put a dark line all the way around it, the outside, and now that makes it look even better. But I really kind of like this particular cell to have maybe a little gray look to it, so it stands out. And let's go ahead and do this one as yellow and this one as blue. Okay, see how nice that looks? So you can do really nice graphics with your tables when you're doing presenting information. If you want to unmerge that, you would just go back up to your merge button and unmerge it, and it will unmerge it. So for instance, if I was going to put another column here, W, and wanted this label now to be over all of them, I could just now highlight it. Let's say it was like this, like it was before. It was like that. I could just click on this and unmerge it, highlight all the way across, remerge it, and it puts it over all three. I could make this one centered. Let's go ahead and make this red. And let's center all of this data so you can see that. Oops, center. There we go. It's all centered. But now I don't have this, doesn't have our little boxes, so I can go back here. Now the problem is my dark outside line is still here, right? So what I would suggest you to do is first no borders, and then go ahead and do all borders, and then thick outside, and there it is. So very quick, easy, pretty. You can make things nice, okay? Formatting boxes, we just talked about that. So the last thing I want to talk about is just when we're doing formulas, there are different formulas that we will use, and we normally would start with @ and there are different ways to do formulas. So let's go right here and say I want to add the two numbers above me, 2 and 3. I can do Shift plus and put the 2, then Shift plus and put the 3, and then hit enter, and it gives me my 5. You can see what I did. I can also do @sum, that's a function formula, highlight my range, and hit enter, and it gives me 5. And now you can see that what's in that cell is the sum function, which is very helpful because I could do it down here, @sum, highlight all of this, enter, and it adds all of this up. Okay, so that's a different way. The other way I can do it is I can say plus, and I can literally type B6 plus B7 and hit enter, and it will do it for me. So there's different ways that you can do it. I also can do, sum here. I could actually do this as @sum, and then I could do G, what is that, G14? 14 colon G19, close my parentheses and hit enter, and it gives me the 15. So I can type it that way. Excel doesn't care. If you can highlight it, you can type it, it's very flexible that way. So it's pretty cool. The other thing is, let's say that I want to do the same thing for these other columns. I can copy and paste it here, and you'll see now it's going to add these. Or let's go back. Let me back it up. I also can copy, and I can paste it, highlight both columns, and hit paste, and it will put it in both. Or let me back it up. I can highlight it and see that little box in the corner. I can grab that corner and just drag it over, and it will do the same thing. Very fast, very neat. Okay, so there are different ways that you can do that. Now next, I want to talk just for a second about dollar stops. Dollar stops are, when you use a dollar stop in a formula, it tells you don't change the row or don't change the column. Okay, so let's go up here and say I want this time to multiply 2 times, and that's the asterisk, 3, and hit enter, and it calculates a 6 for me. This asterisk is multiply. Standard kind of mathematical convention, slash means divide, plus, minus, okay. But now if I wanted to copy that over here, you can see it says it takes 7 times 35, and if I went across it would do all of that. Now, suppose I said I want to multiply the second row of numbers always by this 2. Well, matter of fact, so if we took this formula, B6, and I put a dollar stop in front of the column and a dollar stop in front of the row, then, and notice I didn't put the dollar stops here, when I copy this formula over, let's just do that. You'll see the number is different. What it is doing is it's looking at B6 and multiplying it times this. So when you copy the folder over, or the formula over, the dollar stop says don't move columns when you're copying, don't move row if it's in front. You can just do that to the column or just do it to the row. Very powerful if you're doing a lot of Excel spreadsheet and you're copying folders over. I'll give you an example. Let's put up here 0.10. Okay, so let's say what I want to do, and just for fun, let's just delete all this here. Okay, so these are my numbers, and what I want to do is every one of these numbers I want to multiply times 10%, 0.10. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do the row above, and I'm going to multiply it times this. Okay. Okay, so, but if I copy this over, what it's going to do is this is now saying take this number, one row up, and multiply it times the number that is 1, 2, 3 rows up and 1 row over to the left. Well, there's nothing there, so it's not going to calculate it. But if I put this in this formula and I say I always want to multiply this times this spot, I would put, for this particular number, I'd put a dollar stop 4. Now when I copy this over, it will always take every one of these numbers and it will multiply one row up, and it'll then go to this one particular cell, which is pretty cool. So now if I want to say, well, wait a sec, rather than 10%, let's make it 25%. You can see all these numbers changed. So that's really, really helpful, and it's pretty cool. Okay, I think I have covered some of the basics. We will, throughout the semester, I'll show you some tips and tricks as we go on. You can show me some, because every semester somebody shows me something that I'm not familiar with, which is one of the great things about Excel. All right, have a great day. Bye-bye.